Hello friends. So here I am with a book, or rather I'll say books, because today I'm here with two books instead of one. It's about a homeopath who not only shares his life story but also his 70 years of experience. It's about a boy who was born in a small town in the year 1915 and intended to be an automobile mechanic. But his hard work and fate made him a doyen of homeopathy. Friends, I'm talking about none other than Dr. Shankar P. Koppikar. The first book which I want you all to know about is his autobiography, Serendipity, the story of my life. He wrote this book when he was 92 years old and wished to share his life with all his homeopathic and non-homeopathic followers. This book takes you back to the pre-independence era, to the time he starts off with his childhood stories, his fear of ghosts, his fear of darkness, his bedtime stories with his grandfather, and his special bond with a sister whom he very fondly called as Akka. He was a bright student and used to love reading. He used to make friends very easily. This book has important chapters where he mentions how he met his uncle Dr. D. N. Koppikar, who influenced him for taking homeopathy as his career. How he took up admission in Calcutta, how he met his teachers Dr. N. M. Chaudhary, Dr. R. N. Ghosh, and how they influenced him to study homeopathy more seriously. So let's start with our next book, Koppikar's clinical experience of 70 years in homeopathy. This book has been most favorite amongst all the senior homeopaths and is very strongly recommended among budding homeopaths. It is such an intriguing book that whoever has read this has read it multiple times. This book comes in 405 pages and is divided in 8 sections. It holds a foreword from one of the most eminent homeopaths, Dr. Jugal Kishore. He entreats us with a daily prayer. He says this daily prayer is for a God within, who constantly inspires us and gives us the strength to treat our ailing patients. He then gives us 7 golden tips to young homeopaths on how they can become friend of children's, guide of mothers, and philosophers of elders. So let's start with the next section. Memories. He starts off by mentioning names of all his fast friends, Dr. J. N. Kanjila, Dr. Sarabhai Kapadia, Dr. Diwan Harishchand, Dr. Jugal Kishore, and many more. He shares cases that he learned under his teachers Dr. N. M. Chaudhary and Dr. R. N. Ghosh. The famous case of sternum metallicum, which got diagnosed right on the way he sat on his chair. He shares cases which he learned under Dr. D. N. Koppikar also. Dr. D. N. Koppikar used to teach him Allen's keynote not just through his book, but also through live cases. A lady got an epileptic convulsion immediately after she delivered. Dr. D. N. Koppikar gave her 1 dose of amyl nitrosum and she was immediately revived. And he showed Dr. S. P. Koppikar the line which was written in the ordinary text in Allen's keynote, that puerperal convulsions immediately after the delivery. And the list of cases goes on. The famous case of aurum metallicum, which Dr. D. N. Koppikar took for himself. After reading in Clark's Materiamedica, Clark writes that gold is a solvent and therefore the bony growth in his shoulder was revived after a single dose of aurum metallicum in CM potency. The last part of the memories is his famous Allahabad speech, which he delivered at the All India Homeopathic Congress in the year on 28th December 2000. So let's go to the next section. So the next section is history. He mentions homeopathy as a garden of Materiamedica. And this section is narrated as if he is taking us for a walk through this garden. So Dr. Hahnemann is at the center of this garden and receives highest importance because he is the one who developed this science and Materiamedica, which Dr. S.P. Koppikar says is a colossal work. He then mentions the names of each and every stalwart with their importance with reference to homeopathy. Dr. Boningusen, Dr. P.P. Wells, Dr. Richard Hughes, Dr. Margaret Tyler, Dr. J.T. Kent, Dr. Garth Wilkinson, and last but not the least, Dr. Burnett. The last section mentions the names of 3 people with reference to their contribution in high potencies: Lehrman, Dr. Dunham, and Jenny Chen. So the next section is Materiamedica. In this section, he intricately talks about how to study Materiamedica, how to develop the habit of reading Materiamedica, how to apply the knowledge of Materiamedica in your practice. What are the importance of remedy relationship? Like in a case of apoplexy, phosphorus should be followed after opium. He mentions here cases and lot of drugs, and he adds his clinical experience to each drug that he is talking about, like digitalis for prostate enlargement, petroleum for Meniere's disease and gastric ulcers. There are n number of clinical tips in this section, not just from his own practice, but also from the old literature. Let's go to the next section. So the next section is of repertoire. There are just 2 chapters in this section, but a must read for all the young homeopaths. He mentions here about a book by G.I. Bidwell on how to use a repertoire. It's an eye-opener for all the young homeopaths. So the next 2 sections are practice and therapeutics. These 2 sections are filled with his insights from the classical literature. He tells us how to solve a case right beginning from the chief complaint, which he calls it as an entrance complaint, coming to the dose selection, potency selection, and by giving reference from 6th edition of Organon, he has suggested the use of wet doses over dry doses. Again, these 2 sections are filled with cases and clinical tips. Then comes the most important part of this section. On 3rd November 1932, Dr. Margaret Tyler delivered a lecture at British Homeopathic Society by the title Hahnemann's Concept of Chronic Diseases as Caused by Parasitic Microorganisms. This whole speech is given in this section, and it is a must read for all of us as it clarifies our basic ideas for miasmatic prescribing. He then takes up few therapeutics like tuberculosis, renal colic, and allergic bronchitis. So let's go to the next section. Research. From its literary meaning from Oxford Dictionary to explaining its importance in a homeopath's life. He says that it is by research that we can pay back to our science. The clinical experiences, what we observe in our practice, should be brought out in a research form so that the science can survive. Let's go to the next section. Miscellaneous, the last section. He concludes by giving few suggestions about homeopaths focusing on specialty practice. What should be a homeopath's professional fees, and understanding few economics about homeopathic practice. So this was a small attempt to lure you towards these 2 books. Hope you like our video. Please share your views in comment section, and please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much.